taken to the courthouse by the powers that be. In answer to the charges, he had to make a plea. Mr. Very Guilty took them by surprise, having no defence, set forth his demise. Made up his portfolio, listing all his crimes, and knew, with his past history, he was doing time. Told the court his teenage past and recognised the bench. There was his silver girl, a love that made no sense. She was now a magistrate. How would this all end? Once she was a sweetheart, loved her to the end. That dear John she gave him had sent him round the bend. Off into the night he drove, his life was at an end. Far more to this story and was intent to tell. Stood before the court that day, told of his trip to hell. Told them all in detail about his life of crime since leaving Dover Borstal, 1969. Kicked against society, would not toe the line. Came closer to his brother who'd just been doing time. Should have been his keeper, encouraged him in crime. Juvenile delinquents were also friends of thine. Prison destination, sentence for their crimes. Their weeping mother saw no rhythm to the rhymes. Canterbury Prison, a branch of HMP, was where their mother headed, thinking they'd be freed. 4 stitches to the inch they learned, working on the line. Slop out was a dirty task and was a waste of time. She was rejected at the prison gate. His brother marked the screw that night, now he was future bait. Her Majesty's detention was no remedy, not Wormwood Scrubs or Dover was any help to him. Dover Borstal graduate was his rise to fame, then began to think his life was like a game. Heard via the grapevine, via Wormwood Scrubs, brother whacked the screw that night, he was the ace of clubs. They learned to keep their cool inside, always out of line. Flash Clark was what they called him, number 519. Along with crafty dealings, he loved his life of crime, with careful, callous planning of undetected crime. Gleeful aspirations rode the coaster high, got no satisfaction from his sex, drugs or crime. Mocked all religion, thinking he knew best, stole those things he needed, thinking he was blessed. Sudden change took place one night that took him by surprise. An acid trip was on the cards he did not realise. Striking revelation and an epiphany, agonising horrors induced by LSD. Cried out to the Lord above to save him from the pit, that single tab of acid, an agonising trip. Light was what was needed, directions from above. Then, like a roar from Aslan, he taught me how to love. Rescued from the pit that night, his heart soars like a dove. He turns his back on crime henceforth to follow this new love. Go to that book and read, it really does foretell. I think you'd agree with me, he was rescued from his hell. Now, listen to these words of mine, says he, judge them for yourselves. Was my life worth living on that road to hell? The magistrates were wondering what they should do now. By giving him a martyrdom would only cause a row. His crimes had been the worst the man had seen for years. The drugs and other villainy had reduced his mum to tears. To send this man to prison, who would this satisfy? It might be very awkward for us to justify. We'll put him through the test of time to prove his story true. With due consideration, we think 3 years will do. A discharge for this guilty man was the sentence passed. Never in all history could this be surpassed. The courtroom stood in awesome joy and wondered what was this. A very, very guilty man could not imagine this. Was not the prison sentence nor Borstal regime that worked this reformation or made this man come clean. Some thought it was the aftercare probation service gave, but it was soon realised they had no power to save. Plain to see this guilty man should be made to pay. But let's ask Silver Girl, has she got more to say? Just open Davy's little book. I've power to change the lines. We'll take the rap, clean that book and cancel all his crimes. Go to the book and read yourselves, for it really does foretell I think you'd agree with me, was rescued from his hell. Now close that book, the story ends. There's something more to say. It's not too late to join this starship and start a brand new day. Yes, very, very guilty. There was no other plea. This Borstal boy, a graduate, is now completely free.